Do you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, we can see. Proceed.
Okay. So universal design for learning for all students. So the aim of this theory, or the aim of this UDL, is to make sure that all kids, they can get access of education and the benefit from that point. So our session objectives basically we're going to identify the original and the principles of UDL framework, what UDL is and where it's come from and stuff like that. So we see, but also apply UDL to instructional practices, as we know that after knowing the principles, the origin and how its framework is, we should know how we can imply this knowledge or these principles during the teaching and learning process during our daily activities. But also, we will make some kind of connection between UDL and the brain research. What these, how these two things can be connected together, so that we can see what we can imply and use in our daily life. So there are some essential questions we need to ask ourselves. What is universal design for learning? But also, what advantage do students and teachers gain with UDL? What practical strategies can we use to implement UDL? How does UDL connect with other framework or initiatives? So tunataka kufahamu UDL ni nini, tunataka kujua, je, ni nani anakuwa ananufaika kwa kutumia UDL, kati ya mwalimu au mwanafunzi au wote kwa pamoja. Lakini je, ni njia gani ambazo we can use, or other strategies we can use in implementing UDL in our daily teaching and learning process. But also, as I said before, we need to connect between UDL and the brain research. So how these two things can be connected in our daily life. So by original, we say that UDL provide alternatives so that every student can learn. So the theory for UDL comes from the building and the architecture world. So there is a need, there was a need to make the building accessible to all people, regardless their ability, regardless their disability. So the architectures, they see that there is a need to make sure that our buildings is being accessible, regardless the disability which a person have. As you know that there is in a special need field, we have the social model, and the social model most of the time say that the problem, or or the challenge which a person have can be reduced or can be removed if the society finding the solution. So these architectural world decide to find the way how they can make building made accessible. So an example of UDL in the physical environment is a building with stairs and a ramp. We know that even though most of the African countries or most of the buildings, they don't consider such kind of services. Kutengeneza njia ya kupita kwa ajili ya watu wenye mahitaji maalum, kama watu ambao wanatumia wheelchair au kuweka pia ngazi. Sasa unakuta majengo mengi yanakuwa na ngazi peke yake bila kuwa na hizi ramp, kitu ambacho kidogo kinaweza kikawa ni vigumu kuwafanya watoto au kufanya watu wenye mahitaji maalum kufika kwenye sehemu ya juu. Tumeona sio tu katika majengo makubwa, lakini tumeona hata katika baadhi ya vyuo, tumeona katika baadhi ya shule, there are some buildings inaccessible to the people with maybe physical disability due to the construction, how it is. So building with only stairs isn't accessible to people with a wheelchair other than or other motorized devices. Kwa hiyo kama tutatengeneza majengo ambayo yanakuwa na yana stairs peke yake bila kuweka ramp, kidogo tunaweka pale ugumu kwa watoto au kwa watu wenye mahitaji maalum kuweza kuyapata. Kwa due to that condition, ikapelekea watu kuja na hiyo concept au kuja na hiyo idea ya UDL, Universal Design Learning, kwa maana kwamba how we can accommodate both people with special needs and the normal people in a way that they can access the building. So adding ramp to the buildings, create alternatives, interest for those who are disabled and in need for a wheelchair. So we know that during the process of learning or teaching and learning, there are some barriers. So what are the barriers to learning? Barriers to learning include school organization and the resources. Sometimes the school may be a barrier because of they don't provide a clear way, or they don't provide a kind of services which is required by the special need people. So I see or I observe many of school organizations and the resources are not friendly based on the need and the requirement of a student what we have in our schools. So this is one among the barrier which I observed, and it's applicable. I mean, it's observed in all over the world, I think. But also approach to teaching and learning. How a teacher is teaching is one among the barrier of learning. How material for teaching is produced, how material for teaching are being delivered to the student is one among the big barriers. You may find it, there are some schools, they have maybe kids with a visual impairment, but they don't provide efficient or accommodate well based on their needs. They may find having a kids with maybe a teacher in the class having, right now, most of the African countries, they preach about the issues of inclusive. But do these schools are inclusive? So those are the kind of things which most of the time create a barrier in the process of learning to the kids. And that's why you may find it, due to these barriers, the pass mark or the successful of kids is very limited to this. But also culture and the policies. You know, sometimes in African countries or in any areas, we face some kind of challenges due to the culture what we have, or due to the policies what we have. You may find most of the policies in our continent are paperwork, not a practical way. Um, uh, in schools, they have good police. In our government, we have good police, but the policies are not implemented. And why are not implemented? Maybe due to the culture, due to the belief most of the leaders they have in the system of education, but also buildings and the physical obstacles. As I started to speak before, that some of the buildings are not friendly to the people who with special needs. Some of the buildings are too high to compare that a physical or other needs they can access it. Na unapozungumzia buildings kuwa na mifumo rafiki, hauzungumzii tu watoto wenye physical disability, lakini kuna watoto wengine. Kwa mfano, unapozungumzia miundombinu rafiki hata kwa watoto wasioona au watoto viziwi au watoto wenye mental retardation, wanatakiwa kujengewa misingi au miundombinu ambayo rafiki ili waweze kujifunza vizuri. Lakini kama hakutakuwa na miundombinu rafiki, tayari inatengeneza ugumu katika kujifunza. Lakini kitu kingine na cha mwisho ni relationship among the community. This is a big challenge. In our communities, most of the time, if kids have special needs, sometimes they miss love both from father or mother or from members of the community. Wanawatenga na vitu vingine kama hivyo. Sasa vitu kama vile vina create some kind of anxiety, some kind of stress and stuff like that. Kwa hiyo mtoto huyu kama hapati ushirikiano au hana mahusiano mazuri na wazazi na jamii na mzunguruka, kidogo inakuwa vigumu kufikisha kile ambacho anatakiwa kukifanya. Na hii mifano ipo dhahiri kabisa ukipita katika jamii zetu za kawaida. Watoto wengi wenye mahitaji maalum huwa wanapitia changamoto sana katika mahusiano between families members or between the children and the community. So these are some of the barriers. I know the barriers, but these are some of the barriers in the process of teaching and learning. So, but if we try to remove these barriers, we can make teaching and learning to be more friendly. So in a nutshell, the UDL try to eradicate or try to remove these barriers so that to make all children, they can access system of education in a way that beneficial to all. So the concept of UDL, we say that universal design for learning provides the opportunity for all students to access, participate in, and progress in the general education curriculum by reducing barriers to instruction. What UDL are doing is try to reduce barriers of instruction. How do these people are instructed? How do these kids being assessed in terms of examination, in terms of putting him or her in a certain grade or class? So these are the things which UDL try to consider. How teacher, you are going to deliver the content to your student. So UDL try to make some kind of reducing these barriers in order to make familiarity or in order to make friendly way of teaching and learning in our schools. So this is the basic concept of UDL. But also, so when you talk about UDL, it means that what is universal design learning? I mean, not one size fit all. When you are going to apply one teaching method or methodology in one class, does not fit for all. But you have to create alternatives way so that everyone could benefit from that method or teaching methodology you apply. But also not added on later, but designed from the beginning. Wakati unafundisha mtoto usiadi kile kitu baadaye, ila wakati unapanga somo lako, kwa sababu I mean what I believe all teachers you're supposed to plan your lesson. So wakati unafanya lesson planning unatakiwa udesign a way watoto wote watakuwa benefit. Sio ukiingia darasani ndo uanze kutengeneza njia ambazo utamaccommodate au baadaye ushamaliza kufundisha ndo uanze kutengeneza hicho kitu. Kwa hiyo UDL inasema when you plan your lesson, so you have to include the alternatives ways during the beginning, but also not access for some, but access for everyone. So you have to, you should need, you're supposed to create, or you're supposed to prepare things in order all kids can access it. Kama unatunga mtihani, hakikisha unatunga mtihani ambao watoto wote darasani wanaweza kuwa access, yani wanaweza kujibu huo mtihani. Sio unatengeneza mtihani ambao kidogo wanawajibu watu wachache, wengine hawana uwezo wa kuwajibu. Nilikuwa nazungumza na mtu mmoja kwamba kuna watoto nadhani tutakwenda kuiona mbele. So UDL imekuwa guided na principles kama nilivyozungumza hapo awali. So there are some principles UDL imekuwa imetengeneza. So principles of UDL and instructional methods. So UDL is a set of principles for curriculum design that gives all individuals an equal opportunity to learn. So basically, there are three principles. The first one, UDL provide multiple means of presentation, which means the what of learning. But also UDL, the second principle is provide multiple means of actions and expressions, which means how of learning. And another principle, this is the last one, the third principle of UDL is provide multiple means of engagement, the why of learning. So these are the three basic principles of UDL. So we are going to see how these principles are being applied in our daily teaching and learning process. So research show that 10% of students learning of what they read. Kwa watoto 10% katika darasa lako au katika maeneo yote, 10% ya watoto wanajifunza kwa kusoma kwenye jamii yetu. Kwa anaweza akasoma na akapata kitu. Lakini 20% of what they learn through hearing. Lakini 20% ya watoto wanajifunza kwa kutumia kusikia. Yaani mwalimu akiwa anazungumza darasani au mtu yoyote akiwa anazungumza, yeye ana uwezo wa kujifunza. Lakini 30% wanajifunza kwa kuangalia ama kwa kutazama, they are visual learners. Lakini 50% wanajifunza kwa kuangalia na kusikia, yani akiona unachomfundisha lakini akisikie pia. Kwa ukitoa kimoja huyu hawa, ina maana useme umpe tu kwa kuangalia, kidogo inakuwa ngumu kwake. Lakini 70% watoto ama wanafunzi wanajifunza kwa kusema, yani anachokizungumza anakisema. when you speak out, or when kids or children speak out what you're supposed to teach, wanajifunza 70%, na atakachokisema hawezi kukisahau kwa wepesi, kwa ataweza kukiapply. Lakini wanakuambia 90% wanajifunza kwa kuongea, lakini kwa kufanya. So through verbaling and through apply or doing these things which you are teaching. So unapojaribu kumfundisha mtoto, au tunapojaribu kuwafundisha watoto, tujaribu kuhakikisha kwamba wanakizungumza kile tunachowafundisha, lakini wanakifanya. Sasa tunawezaje kutumia hizi takwimu ambazo zinaonyesha kwa 90% watoto wanaweza kufikiwa kwa kufanya na kwa kuongea? So UDL inakuja kutupa njia sasa. Instructional method principle number 1, ambapo principle number 1, provide student with multiple means of representation. Hii iko vipi? So for example, when you are teaching, you can provide multiple examples that suit instructional needs as well as the learning needs of student. Unapotoa mifano darasani, toa mifano ambayo watoto wote wanaweza kuwa benefited. Sio unatoa mfano ambao pengine mtoto wa eneo fulani due to the physical or due to the geographical limitation hawezi kuelewa. Kwa toa mfano mtoto ambaye anatoka labda west, upande wa kusini na upande wa kaskazini wanaweza kupata kitu. Lakini vile vile when you are teaching in the class, you have to highlight critical features to direct student learning. Hakuna haja ya kuanza kuleta philosophical issues when you are teaching to the kids. You as a teacher, I believe unajua lengo la hii lengo la hii module or lengo la hii topic, mtoto aelewe kitu hiki. Kwa hiyo you have to highlight those critical features. So this can be done through changes in voice. So this include tone, volume and pitch. Some of the teachers unakuta wanafundisha darasani hawafati volume au ile changes of voice. Kitu cha msingi, weka msisitizo ili mwanafunzi akuelewe. Umeona? For some of the kids they may wanaweza wakakumbuka kwa sababu gani ukiwekea mkazo, hata wakati wanajibu wanaelewa. Lakini hii ni njia moja, ziko njia nyingi sana ambazo unaweza ukazitumia in order to highlight critical features during the teaching and learning process. Lakini vile vile provide multiple media and format. So giving student a choice, allow those disability affecting particular modality to access information through another one that they are stronger in. Unapopeleka mtoto au unapomfundisha mtoto, mpe modality mbalimbali ya kujieleza, mpe modality mbalimbali ya kufikisha material. Sio kwa mfano, kuna watoto wengine kama nilivyosema they are visual learners. Kwa hiyo mtafutie vitu ambavyo vinaweza vikamfanya vimuattract aweze kuangalia content yako. Kuna wengine they are good in reading. Kwa tafuta mpe mtoto huyo content ambayo yuko friend nayo. Na kama mwalimu ndio maana tunasema you have to be careful kuwasoma watoto wako darasani, wajue kwamba mtoto wangu huyu anajifunza kwa njia hii, mtoto wangu huyu anajifunza kwa njia hii. Kwa mwalimu unaandaa vitu au unaandaa somo ambalo linawapa uwezo watoto kuchagua anachokiweza au anachokipenda zaidi. Hii itamfanya kuweza kujua kwa kiasi kikubwa sana ile content yako ambayo unaikusudia. Kwa content moja unaipresent in a different way. So these are the kind of things in order sometimes tunasema differentiation, kwa maana kwamba content ile moja unataka watoto wote wa access, lakini unaiweka katika njia tofauti tofauti. Another issue you have to consider katika principle number 1, supporting background knowledge by reflecting on personal experiences. Wakati mwingine tunaamini mawazo yetu walimu, lakini tujue kabisa kwamba watoto wanakuaga na mawazo yao. In education tunaamini kids are not tabula rasa. They have something they knew. But if you know that, you have to support the background knowledge. It's very important na very useful kwa ajili ya watoto kujifunza. Kwa tunatakiwa tuzisupport background knowledge kwa sababu zinaweza kukupa mwanga wa kuconnect na kile kitu unachofundisha darasani. Lakini instructional method principle number 2, provide the student with multiple means of action and expression. So what the meaning of this principle? You have to present modules in a variety of contexts, such as small group, whole group, one-on-one, in-personal, online, and so on. Kwa nini tunafanya hivi? Kuna watoto hawawezi kujifunza katika darasa la watoto wengi. So mtoto wa huyu ukimjua ukamfundisha one on one inakuwa njia nzuri zaidi. Na kuna watoto hawezi kujifunza one on one, anataka ajifunze through discussion, mpe hiyo mwanya. Kuna watoto anaweza kujifunza through lazima mwepo in person, kwa mpatie hiyo nafasi. Kuna watoto wengine wanajifunza kwa kupitia online, wape hiyo nafasi. Kwa tunapokwenda unatakiwa umjue mtoto wako anajifunza katika njia gani, au wanafunzi wako huyu mtoto anapenda discussion, huyu mtoto anapenda one on one, huyu mtoto anapenda hivi. Na ndio maana tunashauri kusiwe na changes ya walimu katika madarasa, kwa sababu mwalimu anakuwa kashawajua watoto wake vizuri na inakuwa rahisi kuimplement this kind of principle. Kwa hiyo tunasema using variety of media help student understand critical features of a process, kwa sababu umemfundisha au umepresent ile idea katika mfumo ambao anaupenda mtoto. Lakini another way you can apply this principle, provide opportunity to practice with support. Wape watoto muda wa kujaribu. Tumeona pale 90% wanajifunza kwa kufanya na kwa kuongea. So practice ni njia mojawapo ambayo ni nzuri sana. Lakini unapofanya practice unampa support. So practice skills in a context is more effective for student than practice in isolation. Kwa mtoto anapo practice kile kitu anakijua zaidi, lakini lazima kuwe kuna support. Sio unampa practice ana practice nyumbani wewe huko. No, wakati mwingine practice ukiwa naye kabisa, ili unaweza kujua namna gani ambapo unaweza kutoa. Sasa kutokana na hii practice with support inatupeleka kwenye kitu kingine, you have to provide ongoing relevant feedback. Some of the teachers, they don't provide feedback to their learners. How you can make the learner to improve, wakati humwambii amekosea wapi, humwambii anatakiwa rekebishe wapi. Ndio jukumu la walimu, kwamba tunaelekeza mtoto hapa umekosea, put this clear, weka hapa hivi, weka hapa hivi, ili ajue. Kwa sababu elimu, mwalimu mzuri ni mwalimu ambaye anafanya mtoto anaweza kujitegemea na kufaulu, lakini sio mwalimu ambaye anatunga mtihani ili aone kwamba watoto wamefeli. Wakiwa wamefeli wengi, basi anasema I'm a teacher, mimi nakuashumu wewe sio mwalimu. Lakini mwalimu ni yule ambaye anatengeneza mtihani ambao, au anafanya mtoto anaweza kujibu mtihani, anaweza kuapply knowledge in any environment. Kwa tunatakiwa tutoe feedback ambazo ziko relevant na zile ambazo mtoto anaweza zikamsaidia. Lakini provide student with a flexible opportunity for demonstrating a skill. Watoto wape nafasi waelezee skills zao. Ndio maana unakuta elimu yetu most of the time tunakuwa tunasoma content kubwa, lakini hatupewi nafasi ya kudemonstrate hizo skills. Tunasoma theory nyingi mno. Je, hizo theory tunazozisoma tunaziapply wapi? Kwa UDL ina support, inasema tuwape watoto flexible opportunity kwa ajili ya kudemonstrate skills waliona. Kama mtoto umemfundisha kuhusiana na maybe let's say ile kupasua chura, sijui kupasua panya and stuff like that, mpe nafasi ya demonstrate, aelezee ile ina umuhimu gani, kwa nini inafanyika, how inafanyika. Ile kitu ana demonstrate na anazungumza, ndio anaelewa kwa 90% ambazo tumeziona hapo juu kama nilivyokuwa nimezungumza. Sasa multiple means of expression inakuaje? Hiyo image inaonyesha kuna watoto hapa wako vizuri, wanapewa kwamba inaweza content moja, lakini je, mtoto unampa opportunity, wewe unataka upresent hii kazi katika mfumo gani? Anaweza akakwambia through song, mpe nafasi. Anaweza akakwambia nataka nifanye maybe a lab experiment, mpe nafasi. Anaweza akataka achore, mpe nafasi. Anaweza akataka kuandika, kuweka maelezo, wape nafasi. Sasa kosa tunalolifanya sisi, unakuta mtu anamforce mtoto afanye vitu ambavyo hata hana uwezo navyo. Some of the kids, they are good in writing, but teacher forced to be a good artist. So you find a question say, with a vivid example and diagram, explaining the theory of maybe evolution of man. Sasa mimi naweza kujieleza, siwezi kuchora, unaniambia nichore, which means unanikosesha marks. Lakini naweza kuelezea vizuri hiyo theory of man paka wewe ukaelewa. Lakini mimi mwingine naweza kuchora ila siwezi kuelezea, ila nimekuelezea, nimechora mchoro in a way unauelewa kwamba this is the drawing of theory of man. Kwa tunatakiwa tuwape watoto hizi multiple means of expression kuweza kupima knowledge. Kama ninavyosema, lengo letu ni kupima understanding and knowledge ya mtoto kuhusu content uliomfundisha. Kwa hiyo mpe opportunity katika mfumo huo na tutaweza kuona vizuri. Sasa instructional method number 2 or principle number 2 inasema provide student with multiple means of engagement. UDL encourage teachers to look for multiple ways to motivate student. Darasani mwalimu ukiingia, tafuta mbinu za kuwafanya watoto wana engage katika lesson yako. Sio unakuja na njia moja tu. Kila siku wewe ni kuwapa watoto group discussion, presentation. Group discussion, presentation. Sometimes fanya njia nyingi. Tengeneza. So a teacher, ndo maana tunasema a teacher unatakiwa uwe artist. A teacher unatakiwa uwe creativity. Unatakiwa uwe una creative vitu vingi sana. Ndo maana wanakuambia field ya walimu ni golden field. Kwa sababu gani? Unatakiwa utengeneze watu wote ambao tunaona duniani. Unatakiwa utengeneze madaktari, engineers, lawyers and stuff like that. Sasa kama hautoi multiple ways to motivate student, ndio utakuja unatengeneza professional baadaye ambao hawana uwezo, kutokana na kwamba hawakupata hizi exposure tangia wakiwa wanafundishwa kwa chini. Kwa when a student are enjoying what they are learning, their motivation can be fluid. So provide adjustable level of challenges. So the level of challenge should be adjusted for different learners. Kuna watoto darasani hakuna watoto, tunapofundisha darasani kuna makundi matatu ya watoto. Kuna hawa watoto ambao wanaelewa haraka sana, tunawaitaga fast learners or gifted and talented. Alafu kuna hawa watoto ambao wapo kati, normal kids. Alafu kuna hawa slow learners. Kwa hiyo kama ukitunga mtihani ambao au kama ukileta kazi ambayo ina challenge sawa kwa haya makundi matatu, lazima kuna kundi utaliacha, kuna kundi utaondoka nalo. As a teacher, in order to make all of them, as UDL advice, all kids should get the opportunity to learn equally. You have to make some kind of adjustment, or sometimes we say differentiation approaches. So you make differentiation maybe in the process of instruction, in the process of assessment, which means maybe exams and stuff like that. You may make some adjustment in the environment wise. It means that the teaching. So nimezungumza kitu kimoja pale. What does brain research tell us about learning differences? Brain research hii inasema kuna network tatu ambazo kwenye ubongo wa mwanadamu yuko nazo. Network ya kwanza tutaangalia network, alafu tutaangalia examples na implication for teaching. Network ya kwanza tunasema recognition network. Basically how information we see, hear and read is gathered and categorized. Tunatofautiana. The way mimi ninavyopata hii information, kwa mfano hata hapa ninapoelezea, nikisema niulize swali, atakavyoelezea mmoja na mwingine ni tofauti. So the same to the kids, you have to know namna ambavyo anapokea hizo information, anavyozisoma na kuzicategorize inakuwa tofauti. So recognition sometimes identifying letters, words or author style. Kwa unaweza ukakuta mwalimu mmoja kafundisha kitu kimoja, lakini let's say kama kwenye kazi za literature, mtu anaposema labda useme to identify authors ideas and the themes in the story, kila mtu atakuwa na themes zake, lakini hii inatokana na nini? Na recognition network. So present information, how this recognition can be linked, or the brain research on recognition network can be linked with UDL principle. As a teacher, you have to present information and the content in multiple ways so that all the kids can get access to your information, what you are doing. Another network, brain research, is strategic network. How our ideas are organized and expressed. Tunavyoandika, nikisema mtu aandike, hatuwezi kuwa na uandishi sawa. Kwa hiyo the same to kwa wanafunzi wako hivyo, na hii haiwezi kubadilika hata dunia ishi. So strategic task, kwa mfano writing an essay, solving a math problem, acting out a story, a sequence. Nitakapopanga mimi namba moja sio atakapopanga mwingine namba moja. Tuna huo tofauti. Strategic network. Sasa how this network can be linked with UDL and in our daily teaching process. So as a teacher, you should differentiate the ways that the student can express what they knew. Anachokijua mtoto, mwambie present vile ambavyo anaona ni rafiki kwake. Kama anaweza kujielezea, mpe nafasi ajielezee. Kama anaweza kuchora, mpe nafasi achore. Kama anaweza kuimba, mpe nafasi aimbe. The matter, ile concept ya msingi mwalimu unaijua ameifikisha. Kama kaifikisha, fine enough. Hiyo ndio knowledge ambayo tunaitaka. Sio unalazimisha watoto waandike essay tu, watoto wachore. No, that's kind of system inaanza kupitwa na wakati, kwa sababu tunataka tutengeneze wataalamu wabobevu, very technical people, they know what they're doing and stuff like that. Lakini another network tunaita affective network. Hii iko vipi? Affective, how learners are engaged and they stay active, involved, challenged, interested or excited in learning task. Sasa hii, for example, using a rubric, planning learning goals, using a graphic organizer for note taking. Rubric, unapoanza kufundisha mtoto, mwambie kabisa, mtu atakayejibu au atakayefanya kazi kwa sehemu hii atapata alama hizi. Kwenye IB curriculum, I'm not sure kwenye other curriculum, mara nyingi naona hii inafanyika. Kunakuwa na rubric. Task unapoitoa unaonyesha, ukijibu hivi utapata hivi, ukijibu hivi utapata hivi. Kwa hiyo mtoto anajua kabisa natakiwa nifanye nini. Kwa hiyo you have to set a rubric. Kama mtoto haelewi, tengeneza graphic organizer, make a summary ya hicho kitu unachokifanya. Sasa hii inakuaje? Kama katika how tunaweza tukafanya implication katika process of teaching and learning. Stimulate interest and the motivation for learning through multiple ways. Kama ukimpa mtoto vitu ambavyo vina motivate au multiple ways of motivation, itamfanya mtoto aweze kufikiria, kila mtoto utamuengage. Kwa kufanya hivi vitu, tunaweza tukafanya watoto wote darasani, whether ana changamoto gani, lakini akajihusisha na kile ambacho tunataka kufundisha, na teaching and learning ikaenda smooth. As I said that UDL ni pana sana, lakini due to the time naomba tuishie hapa, na naamini kuna kitu ambacho tunaweza tukawa tumekipata. Thank you for your time. So any question, please, you are welcome.
Wow, asante sana. Tumejifunza mengi sana, na hata kuna maswali katika kipengele cha mazungumzo. Hebu tuone. Mary anauliza, how do you apply this in a very large classroom setting? How do you apply the UDL mode in a large classroom setting?
May I get okay? That's why. Okay, let me try to do like this. If the class, you have large class, because I know that most of our classes are too many, maybe 45 or more than 45 kids. The first thing, you have to make identification. So the identification is the first priority you have to know. The identification means that you have to know your kids, the level of your kids, or what kind of needs they have. After knowing that, you should categorize them based on their needs. Kwa ukijua watoto wangu hawa labda 10 ni fast learners, 10 wako hivi, 10 wako hivi. Kwa hiyo hata unapokuwa unajiandaa in terms of material na nini, unaweza ukawa unajaribu wewe darasani kuwaweka ambavyo utakuwa unakutana nao. Kwa hiyo kwenye darasa kubwa unaweza kufanya mfumo huu, kwa maana kwamba kuwajua. Ukishawajua, during the process of teaching and learning, let's say labda umegawa magrupu in class, maybe the group discussion, unaweza ukaweka hao katika group moja. Na hiyo usifanye darasa zima wajue. Hiyo ni ya kwako wewe mwalimu, ndio unajua kwamba watoto wangu wako na level hii. Kwa hiyo unaweka kulingana na level wako nayo. Ukishawaweka hivyo, kidogo itakuwa kwako rahisi kuwasaidia, kwa sababu utaweka kwenye group moja afu utawasaidia. Ingawaje pia tunashauri kitu kingine kinaitwa remedial classes. Kwa hiyo wakati mwingine kama unaona darasani muda hautoshi, na most of the time in classroom is not enough, kwa hiyo tafuta muda wa ziada katika kuwa support na kwa ni one among the strategy ambayo tunaitumia pia katika kuwasaidia.
Mary, swali lako unaona kali imejibiwa? Has it been answered? Imefika nyumbani? Unaweza unmute.
It has been answered. Really great that what he has said. I'm just worried about, is it okay? Do they have disability? I am aware of it, but I'm just grouping the learners into he has tried of this to have ability.
Am I the only one who's not getting? I'm not getting you very well.
Yeah, I think maybe he can
Me
type.
too. I'm not getting.
Unaweza type. Ni kama there's a nini on your, there's a network issue on your end. You can just type kindly. In the meantime, naona kulikuwa na swali ingine. Oh, so swali, Phyllis says, great and interesting conversation, nimeipenda sana. And Ruth says she finds similarities between UDL and Montessori learning. Maybe Ruth, you can highlight what parts you feel are similar. If you can. Ruthie.
I'm finding the similarity between in terms of hands. This what do we call it? The materials that they use, the educational materials. Having fun with them. So it's diverse and learners or the kids can choose from. So I've seen that UDL kids have options, they have choices whereby they can choose on what to do, on what materials that they can engage with. So there's that similarity with the Montessori.
Yeah, clearly. I don't know.
Yes,
Do you have something to say about that?
I agree with what she said, that there is similarity between the UDL and the Montessori, and that's why if you see the Montessori clearly, sometimes the first year they need to know what kids is more familiar with. So trying to know the issue of fine motor skills, the issue of gross motor skills, issues of sorting and stuff like that. Kwa UDL ina relate kutokana na hiyo, na ndio maana nakubaliana naye kutokana na mfumo ambao unauona kwa Montessori unavyotumia, na ni kweli kabisa kwa sababu Montessori wana lengo la kumfanya mtoto specialize au afanye kile kitu ambacho yuko na interest, lakini akiperform vizuri zaidi, and the UDL ndio wana encourage pia hivyo, yani afanye kitu kulingana na uwezo wake.
Yeah, ni kweli. Sioni kama kuna swali ingine. Yeah, Mary was saying, thank you very much for the well-elaborated and detailed session. My question has been answered. Yeah, thank you so much, Hussein. It's been such an insightful session. Kulikuwa na maswali kuhusu autism. I think tutatayarisha another episode where you'll come in and talk to us more about autism and to create awareness. Ruth, proceed.
Okay, it's just general. So I wanted to ask Hussein about the education system in Tanzania. What kind of education system are they using? Like in Kenya, we have incepted the CBC like 2 years ago. So I wanted to know if they're using a similar concept or their curriculum is different. And if they're using the same concept as us, the CBC, when was it incepted? And how is it so far? What is the results? Or how have they embraced? Yeah. How do they find it? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your great contribution. I remember when the CBC started in Kenya, we had a lot of discussion in Tanzania. That is, Tanzania, we have the competency-based curriculum, but what the competency-based curriculum for Tanzania started since 2015. But there is a lot of challenge on competence-based curriculum. Why? Because when you change the curriculum, you should also provide the professional development for the teachers. That because the government changed or they apply the concept-based curriculum as Kenya, but what I see, teachers, they don't aware on the competency-based curriculum, but also even the content or the materials are used for the curriculum are not related based on the competence curriculum requires. And also the examination. In Tanzania, we have exams in standard 4, standard 7, form 4, form 6. Those are the national exams. But how do I try to assess and to observe those examination? They are not in competent based as the policy of education state. And I think last month, oh no, this month, last week, the Minister of Education of Tanzania say they are going to change even the system of curriculum now again, because previously the primary education was started standard 1 up to standard 7, but the government required to change it to standard 1 up to standard 6, and then there is no again national exam for standard 7, so they were going to do national exam only up to form 4 or level. So those are the kind of changes which, in my side, what I see, and this is the problem, I think most of the African countries, we have policies, but the implementation is challenged. And why the implementation is challenged? Because during the process of creation this policy, the government officials or the people who are in high position, they are the one who create the policy rather than to engage the stakeholders from the ground. Because if you need to create competency-based curriculum, you should focus on the needs of the community. And the needs of the community, where do they can get the information from the lower class, I mean, from the teachers, from the parents, from the community, from the street, rather than to call the conference or the workshop of maybe the ministry and the higher official during the Ministry of Education, and then to set the curriculum that this is a competence-based curriculum. That's not right, what I see. And that situation happened in most of African countries. I think last month we had the education conference, which involved the whole African, even people from Kenya. So we have such kind of a discussion. For example, the issue of language. What kind of language do we need to use in the process of teaching and learning? From Tanzania, we have such kind of challenge because during the primary, we use Swahili, but when it comes to secondary, we use English, and the university, we use English as the language of teaching and learning. So those are some of the issues we have, but also the competence-based curriculum, if you see clearly, they don't include special needs kids. They don't have such kind of requirement. They don't consider that in our society, we are different. Learning difference is part and parcel of our community. When you go every place, you find such kind of issue. So what I see, there is a big gap, and the gap because they don't involve required stakeholders during the process of making this curriculum.
Wow. Ruth, maoni?
I have something
Sarah.
to mention. Hussein has talked about something that I wanted to speak, but maybe I'll speak from the classroom setup. You realize that most of these learners who have got special needs, the recommendation for the doctor is for these learners to be included in a normal school setup. Learners with Down syndrome, learners who are autistic, learners who are, let me say, partially deaf or something like that. But one challenge that crops up, you realize during the trainings or the teacher training colleges, a special need is just a unit. Unless someone has gone to KISE to learn more about learners with special needs. Basically on these other trainings, especially in early childhood, it is just a unit of special needs, and it is only the theory part. We don't get to do maybe when we say about TP, to go to areas where we've got learners with special needs, to have the experience, to even know how to go about the individualized educational program. So when it comes to a classroom setup, and this teacher needs to plan early according to learners' abilities and all this, the teacher has a challenge. I might not be good in music, I might not be good in art and drawing. So even how I'm going to assess this learner is also a challenge to me as an individual. So at the end of the day, you realize the teacher is only equipped to do more of learners who are abled in what we term as normal than those who are abled with who are able differently. And secondly, you realize that even these parents, they prefer their learners to behave like any other normal child instead of accepting their children the way they are. So at the end of the day, there is a conflict of interest. This child wants this parent wants the child to perform this way, and the teacher is now, I can use a method of like drilling or forcing this child to behave in a particular way, not giving this child the opportunity to exploit and explore their own potential. So at the end of the day, these learners don't get the expected outcome. They don't achieve their goal, because CBC is all about all learners being successful. But at the end of the day, you realize you all shift into an 844 kind of system and not the CBC kind of way. So if this UDL can be incorporated, or maybe the stakeholders review how these teachers are being trained to ensure that it's not only in a classroom setup. If you're doing special needs, you have to visit a special needs place. There's teaching practice for those areas. You get to know, and the recommendations the doctors give, some of these parents don't like sharing. So you are limited to, daktari alisema mtoto wangu asome kama watoto wengine. So what do you do as a teacher? It really becomes a challenge.
Yeah, in fact, that's what we were saying, because you find in a classroom, the teachers are teaching CBC content, but in an 844 delivery method, which kind of just takes us back, even further back than where we were, because unapata CBC is supposed to be student-centered. But then you see the teacher is just dishing out knowledge, not even allowing students to be creative, to find ways to solve the problem, or to even just learn by themselves. Like the teacher is supposed to do 30, students 70, but then you find it's the same as 844. It's my way or no way. If you try and find another method of problem solving, it becomes a problem in the classroom. So I think that's very interesting that if teachers are trained in the UDL method, in fact, we were having this conversation with Hussein yesterday, that I think it's very important that not just teachers who do special needs, but every teacher is taught about special needs. It's good to have that information at the back of your mind, because some of these disabilities are sleeper disabilities, like learning disabilities. It's very difficult for you to pick out dyslexia at age 5. It's very difficult for you to pick out dyspraxia at the same level, because some children learn slower than others. And also when we talk about the parents' involvement, it becomes like the parent cannot accept their child is maybe dyslexic or has autism or what. So you as a teacher, are you equipped to help this student be the best version of themselves, regardless of what the parent is saying? When they're in your classroom, are you switching up the teaching method to suit this learner? Are you doing what's best for them in the classroom setup? So it's a very, very important discussion to have with stakeholders and all those. Elonona tumepitisha wakati. The conversation has been so good. I think we'll have to have Hussein for part 2. We have to do the autism, and also we have to dissect that gap that we're all trying to bridge in our own respective rights. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been such an amazing episode. Ruth had something to say. Continue.
Okay, for me, the parting shot is I'll say that it's not that we lack the capacity in our education system, but I think the facilitation or the things that facilitate our education is what that we lack. For example, training the teachers. Let's say there are adequate learning materials in the schools. What about the educational structures? And then the geographical areas or the locality in which the schools are or in which the learners are in. Yeah. And then there's things to do with mental health and awareness, the financial background of these learners. You know, are there programs like feeding programs in cases like Turkana? You understand? So it takes a lot of things to make our education system a success. So it all turns down to our leadership, the leaders that we have, and the implementation process, as Hussein said. The policies are good, but the implementation process is the issue or is the challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hussein, maybe something before we close off?
Yeah, actually, thank you so much for all your contribution are very important. That issue, what you say on to include, for example, the knowledge of special needs to all teachers is very important because some of the issues are hidden. For example, learning difficulties. You can't observe him or her by through physical appearance. So, but also nachukia sana, naomba nisamee, lakini viongozi kuto kuwahusisha watu wanaohusika katika mifumo ya elimu. You know, the solution we have, but the issue, walio kwenye nafasi hawahusishi watu walio na solution. So that's a big challenge. Lakini pia awareness kwa wazazi. Mimi naamini the number one ambassador is me and you. So we are the number one ambassador. So if we provide more education, if you speak to one parent, tayari umeshatoa elimu kubwa sana, yule ataenda kumwambia mwingine, naamini. Kwa hivyo mimi naamini sisi ndio tuwe ambassador namba moja, and from that point naamini jamii itakuja kukua kubwa, kwa sababu hata tulipo sasa hivi hatukuwa hapa miaka 10 nyuma. Kwa hiyo hizi ni movement ambazo zinatakiwa ziwe endelevu bila kuchoka, na hata kama hautanufaika wewe, lakini I believe your next generation watakuwa benefited na kazi ambayo unaifanya sasa. Yeah.
Ni kweli. Sijui kama kuna mtu mwingine kuna jambo kabla tuja sign off. So asanteni. It's been such a lovely evening having this chat with you, and I hope to see you all again next Wednesday. And Hussein, we will plan on the autism and a more detailed discussion on the policies implementation and how even us, we can do that in our own spaces. Because if it starts with me, if I implement UDL in my classroom, if Sarah implements UDL in her classroom, if you implement UDL in your environment, if Mary does that, you see, we're not all teaching in the same school, but it's starting a chain reaction that might be adopted kila mahali. So it's, as Hussein said, it starts with us. So you have a lovely evening. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a blessing to hear from you guys. Have a lovely evening. Bye.